Edgar Berlanga versus Hamzah Sheeraz. Let's deep dive into this fight. But before we get to that, y'all help me run the numbers up on this video. All right, so the flashy, flamboyant personality that is Edgar Berlanga. You won't catch him doing an interview without 100 chains on. Takes on the all business model that is Hamzah Sheeraz. Two different personalities, two different fighting styles, but it'll all come together for one explosive fight. Now let's start with Berlanga. The first part of his career, his first 15, 16 fights, all knockouts, had the boxing world in a frenzy. But then he had a 4-fight stretch where people asked him questions against Nicholson, Sheeraz, Steve Rolls, as well as Alexis Angulo. Those weren't his best performances. You know, people had questions about his boxing ability. But then he takes on Jason Quigley, which to this date, I think was his best performance. And he follows that up with another impressive performance against McCrory, which earned him the Canelo shot. Now, against McCrory and Quigley, he boxed well, he was patient, and he didn't press. Against Canelo, I'm not sure if the lights were too bright for him, but he was gun shy. He didn't let his hands go. He got dropped early in the fight and he went into survival mode. You know, he did have moments in the later rounds where he threw some combinations, but he could have done that earlier in the fight. You know, one mistake that he made was he let Canelo from opening bell push him back. Berlanga, being the taller and naturally bigger man, he could have established his size and dominance over Canelo. You know, I'm not really into the moral victory stuff. I don't think there are any moral victories in the sport of boxing. You know, I survived 12 rounds with Canelo, or I didn't get knocked out with Canelo. I'm not with all that. Now, switching over to Sheeraz, I think that 3 of his last 4 performances were pretty impressive against Liam Williams, Austin Ammo Williams, and Tyler Denny. He boxed well. He used his height and reach very well. He fought behind the jab. You know, he had snap on his punches. You know, there was no wasted punches in any of those fights. Against Carlos Adames, from opening bell, I felt like he wasn't confident. You know, I'm not sure if the lights were too bright for him either, but he just did not look confident at all. You know, Adames had moments of inactivity where Sheeraz just didn't take advantage. You know, you spent the entire fight waiting for Sheeraz to kind of step on the gas a little bit, but he didn't. Now, I do have a theory. I've always thought it was interesting. Fighters 6'3" and taller fighting under 175 pounds. You know, Hamzah Sheeraz, Sebastian Fundora, as well as Diego Pacheco. You know, I've always found that interesting. But maybe making 160 pounds was getting a little difficult for him. You know, he is 26 years old. You know, that's when you start to develop your man strength and your grown man body. So we'll see how he looks at super middleweight. That's 8 less pounds that he has to cut. But he is going to be the taller man. We'll see if he fights behind the jab and uses his reach advantage. But I'm very excited about this fight, man. Y'all make sure y'all tune into the channel. Next Saturday, July 19th, we got 3 big fight cards. The Pacquiao card, which is loaded. You got Alexander Usyk as well as Ben Rodriguez. So it's going to be a fun night of boxing on July 19th. So tune into the channel. But in the meantime, in between time, subscribe, follow, like, comment, share that thing.